Emerita, and we welcomed her, and we even placed a covenant before you and me and Betts, in which we promised to be together very well in love and in high regard. This comes because when a new minister comes to a congregation, and I'm the new minister coming to the congregation, if there are other ministers in the congregation, an agreement is made about how we want to be together. And so we did that with Betts last week, and this week I would like to do it with our newly minted minister from the Ministerial Fellowship Committee, who decided that she is definitely qualified to be a minister in our organization and in our association, Kristen. So we would like you to turn to your orders of service and see this responsive reading that Kristen and I will read, and then the very last paragraph, which says Reverend Thomas and Kristen, I would invite you all to read along with us on that one too. Because of our deep regard for the health and vitality of the congregation, I, as the interim minister at Live Oak Unitarian Universalist Congregation, and Kristen Rohm, in preliminary fellowship with the Unitarian Universalist Association, publicly present our covenant of ministry with each other. We aspire to offer our ministries in the spirit of mutual trust and open lines of communication, while respectfully following the code of conduct as put forth by the Unitarian Universalist Ministerial Association. In the spirit of respecting and upholding the code of professional practice of the Unitarian Universalist Ministers Association, I covenant with you, Kristen Rohm, in recognition of the continuing value of Kristen's presence in this congregation. I enthusiastically welcome her. I covenant to invite Kristen to appropriate participation in ministry in the life of the congregation, when so doing would enhance the witness of the event.
I covenant to honor the priority of the interim minister's ministry at Live Oak in all ways, and to be of service to him, to you, Thomas, in ways that are mutually agreeable, such as serving as counsel, sounding board, or in ways as yet unknown. Knowing that I am always welcomed at Live Oak, I covenant to work together with Reverend Thomas so as to encourage and promote the health of ministry at Live Oak.
And would you all read with us this final paragraph? Knowing that life's deeper meanings can only be found in deeply responsive and responsible relationships, all parties to this covenant will strive to honor this covenant, which is more about how we will be together than about what we will do together. Therefore, we covenant to walk together mindfully, speak truthfully, and love faithfully for the greater good and healthy future of Live Oak Unitarian Universalist Congregation. Thank you and welcome.
As we prepare to enter a time of meditation, I invite you to get comfortable in your seats, to feel your feet on the floor, to take a breath, bringing yourself fully present, bringing yourself to that spirit of prayer, meditation, or reflection, whichever is your practice. God of our hearts, breath of the world, be with us. We gather in this community, carrying our hurts from the weak. May we find a space to lay down our burdens. We gather together seeking a moment of reprieve from the busyness of everyday life. May we find space to breathe deeply and be nurtured by the quiet. We gather as people of faith, longing for a chance at deep connection with one another. Let us be brave enough to look into someone else's eyes, to hear their story, and to tell our own. We gather together, building strength for the week to come, so that we may meet a world desperately in need of our peace and healing. As we gather here and rest in our shared silence, may we be filled with the love that is the essential nature of the universe. I want you to imagine it's a warm summer night, that the darkness is soft and welcoming on your skin. You can hear the waves lapping gently on the shore of Lake Michigan as you walk toward a candle-lit circle. Over the sounds of the city of Chicago and the nervous beating of your own heart, you hear singing, a repeated chant. Welcome, my friends. Join with us now. Open your heart to grace, seen and unseen. You step into an open spot in the circle, where someone smiles directly into your eyes as they tie a piece of soft green wool yarn twice around your wrist. This happened at the start of my second year of seminary. We continuing students welcomed the newest students with this ritual. They were nervous and excited and a bit scared. It was, after all, their first day at divinity school. We held up our own wrists, already circled by yarn. Green for new beginnings, we told them. This is a concrete symbol of our commitment to walk with you as seminary students and later as colleagues. We told them, we promise to share your journey of becoming a minister and your calling to a life of ministry. Wear this on your wrist as long as you need to, until you know deep in your bones you will never be alone on this journey. There were some tears that evening as we named the weight of the call to ministry and promised to share it. We entered into an agreement to be friends and colleagues forever, around and through the personal and professional irritations and disagreements life would bring to us. We all wore these green yarns for months, until they felted together and then literally fell off. This ritual has been repeated each year since. I think because it makes concrete the power of covenant to address our deepest fears and needs. This morning, you've heard and participated in the agreement that Reverend Thomas and I made between us. Now, I'm not sure who's the salmon and the bear and the river, but I am sure it's a good idea when more than one minister has contact with a congregation to do this. I have such long and deep roots among you. I wanted to ensure that my presence here did not in any way cause confusion or harm to you. For those who don't know, I've been a member of this congregation since 1993, and as has been suggested, have recently completed my training and become a Unitarian Universalist minister. Many of you have figured out already that you as a congregation and I as a minister will be in search at similar times. A few of you have asked me directly, will I be applying for this position? A few others of you have danced delicately around it. So let me take a moment to explain that I am not planning to apply to be your next minister. At this time, I feel too emotionally entwined with you all and with our shared history to be able to minister clearly and well with you. My intention is to go into a national search next year. My hope for Live Oak is that this time with Reverend Thomas will be used by all of you to the very fullest extent, to heal as needed, and to explore deeply who you are as a congregation and what qualities you need in the minister who will walk with you into the future. I have another piece of news to share this morning. I have recently reached a verbal agreement to be the minister at the Universalist Unitarian Church of Santa Paula for 18 months, beginning in January. I'm pleased to be able to work with our neighboring congregations, supporting them in their own time of challenge. And it means that I will not be able to spend as much time here with you as Reverend Thomas and I had imagined when we planned and wrote that covenant. But I asked to go ahead and read it and share it today because I have such respect for these agreements and for you. I believe that covenant is the glue that makes life in community possible. And I think it's important because being human is messy at times. Being human in community is even messier. And it is exactly that process of sorting through the messiness. It is then that we grow and become better people and form the relationships that last lifetimes and that save our lives in times of deep distress, grief, or despair. Those bonds between us, they may begin when it's sweet and fun, but they solidify and prove themselves when we are there for and with each other when the going gets rough. When we choose not to walk away with our feelings hurt or our ego bent out of shape. Being in religious covenant together gives us the structure, the container, to allow this depth of relationship to develop among us. And isn't that what we all long for? To be in relationship, to know and be known deeply and truly. And we Unitarian Universalists, not just here, but across the country, we've been leaning into these types of agreements in the last many years, maybe a decade or more. We've been writing covenants of right relations, spelling out our best intentions for how we treat one another in long-term community. We make agreements like we did today. Many of us have spoken of our faith being a covenantal one, rather than a creedal one. And by that we mean we are bound together by how we treat one another as we journey together upon the spiritual path. This is more important in our congregations than agreeing on a formal statement of faith. We have a long and proud history with covenant. And I want you to be glad that Reverend Thomas shared with you the highlights of the history of religious covenant several weeks ago. Because I love history, and I could spend about a week or more going over all that history. But since you've had most of it, I'll just spend an hour or two. And I'm just kidding. I will share with you one or two small, tiny things that I think are relevant for our life today about why this covenant business is important. You no doubt already know that we are direct descendants on the Unitarian side of our family tree from the Pilgrims, who came to this continent to escape religious persecution. And I'm going to borrow freely for a little while from the work of Alice Blair Wesley, a Unitarian Universalist minister who wrote a series of 6 lectures in 2000-2001 entitled, conveniently enough, Our Covenant, in this book. To understand why our ancestors came here, what drove them, we need to make a brief visit to England in the early 1600s. There, people were born into a local parish, and it was the law that you must show up at your church every week. Might I say, I'm so very glad to know that you're all here by choice. And then the use of the printing press changed everything. For the first time in history, anyone who could read had direct access to the Bible. They didn't need their minister to tell them what it said or to interpret it. It may seem strange to us, but at the time, this caused a virtual explosion of energy and interest. And pretty much the entire population of England wanted to talk about the Bible. Of course, our ancestors were among those who didn't just want to, but who needed to talk about their own thoughts, their own interpretations of the scriptures. Now, the Church of England, along with the king, neither of whom really wanted any change, they made it difficult, even illegal, for people to get together, even in a private home, to discuss the Bible and interpret it themselves. It was illegal to go to someone else's church to hear what their minister had to say. Now take a minute and think. Can you imagine a group of our ancestors saying, okay, that's fine, we'll just stop talking about new ideas. We'll trust the king and the bishops to tell us what to believe. It's hard to imagine because it didn't happen. Our ancestors had read in the scriptures that the earliest Christians had freely organized their own churches, and that's what they wanted for themselves. So they sold everything they sailed 3,000 miles across the ocean in very small ships, risked their lives to be able to gather together freely and have these discussions and to form their own churches. And they weren't just being stubborn. They believed at the core of their being that not only was it important for them, but that it was important for being able to create a just society, a society more fair than the ones they knew, that they needed to be able to form their own church, guided by the Holy Spirit of love, which were their words, which was how they understood God and Jesus at that time. Now we have records of exactly what happened in one community, one particular community that formed in 1637 by 30 families who had not known each other in England, who met for the first time in the wilderness of Massachusetts to create a town called Dedham. We do not know how they gained the land from the indigenous people before them. We do know a lot about their process of creating a church because they kept notes, copious notes. And that's why I showed you this book, because this lady read the notes, condensed it in a very slender book for all of us to be able to profit from. We know that they met weekly for a year. In their words, lovingly to discourse and consult together and prepare for spiritual communion in a church society. In that year's worth of discussions in the 1630s, we might expect a lot of talk about sin or hell, but you know what? That was not reflected in the minutes. What they did talk about was getting to know each other and how to be with each other. The most commonly used words in the minutes were affection, affectionately, love, embrace, and lovingly. They had guidelines for these discussions that included everyone speaking once before anyone spoke twice, and speaking only one's own thoughts, rather than correcting someone else's thoughts. Sounds like us in our better days. After that year of discussions, they decided, yes, they would create their own church, and they did so by writing a covenant. Each person who joined the church signed the covenant, promising to walk together guided by that Holy Spirit of love. And here's a critical piece. They ordained 2 of their own members, one as preacher and one as elder. They decided in that year of discussion that they were absolutely clear that they had the authority they needed to start their own church and to ordain their own minister. They did not ask the governor of the colony of Massachusetts. They did not write to a bishop in England. In fact, when a bishop from England came to the colonies to try and figure out what they were doing and bring them back to the fold, they actually wrote our first document, the Cambridge Platform, which claimed each congregation's right to ordain and call their own ministers and settle their own affairs, free from any influence of bishops or government. Today, we build on the hard work of folks like those who settled throughout New England. Nearly 400 years later, in congregations like this and throughout the country, we Unitarian Universalists have inherited their traditions and their free churches. We continue to write our bylaws, mission statements, and sign our names in membership books. We call and ordain our own ministers. We write our own covenants. All of these pieces of who we are today come directly from our religious ancestors. I want to stop for a moment here and say how much I love this history and how well it meshes with my own personal story. It was here, well, actually, to be accurate, it was across the way in Fellowship Hall on a Sunday morning worship. During Sunday morning worship, when I received my call to the ministry. And it has been here at Live Oak among you that I did the healing and the growing that I needed to finally be able to say yes to that call. Do you remember this? Making this walking stick together with me 2.5 years ago when we said goodbye because I was starting my internship in Ventura. This walking stick went with me and it lived in my office those 2 years. And every day that I saw it, I saw these ribbons of good wishes and hopes, each of you attached here, and I knew that I was held in love. And it is you, Live Oak, who acted as my official sponsoring congregation through the somewhat exhaustive process of ministerial formation. Maybe you're not sure what that means, but every person who wishes to become a Unitarian Universalist minister has to not only be a member of a congregation for at least 3 years, but they have to have a congregation in good standing vote to sponsor them as a ministerial candidate. This means that you all told the Ministerial Fellowship Committee that you knew me, and you trusted me, and that you saw in me the potential to be a UU minister. I can't tell you how much that meant to me. Thank you for your faith in me. And I am also so grateful that you will join with the Ventura congregation in ordaining me in February. As I planned the service, I realized that for me, it is an opportunity to celebrate my family and to celebrate the congregations that helped to form me. For you all have been the wind beneath my wings. And quite literally, without you, I cannot finish this journey. If you're new to us, you may not know that in our denomination, only the congregations can ordain our ministers. The Unitarian Universalist Ministers Association, our association, our national organizing body, has said that I fulfilled the requirements. They recognize me as a minister, but only you can complete the process. Only you have the power and the authority to confer on me the title of Reverend. I love this about our faith. Just like in the 1600s in Dedham, it is we, the people, who nurture, call, and ordain our own ministers. I hope that you will all come down to Ventura on Sunday, February 17th in the afternoon to ordain me and to celebrate the realization of this journey. I close this time today with a story called The Long Walk. A boy in a village in Africa wanted to give his teacher, who was returning soon to England, a gift. He had no money, and his options were few. Yet he gave the teacher a beautiful, beautiful shell the day before she left. She was stunned, and she said, "Thank you. It is so wonderful. Where did you find it?" The boy named a bay many miles away, saying it was the only place such extraordinary shells could be found. The teacher was speechless and finally said, "That is so far. You shouldn't have." The boy smiled, a large smile, and his eyes shone, and he said, "Long walk, part of gift." Isn't that so true? Often the most meaningful thing we offer each other is that long walk. With our children, our life partners, our friends. The long walk is what we promise each other when we sign the membership book, when we enter into our covenants. We pledge to accompany each other through the despairs and the joys of our lives. We promise to walk with each other and not away from each other, even when we are in disagreement. We agree to journey together on a path of spiritual deepening and creating a more just community outside our doors. We covenant as our ancestors did nearly 400 years ago to walk together in the spirit of love that is the essential nature of the universe. May you consider and honor the covenants in your life and with this congregation. May you know how profoundly grateful I am for the support and care you as individuals and as a congregation have gifted me during these many years. I am grateful for the traditions we all inherit from our religious ancestors, and I am grateful for our shared history. May we continue this long walk together with all the integrity and all the love we can muster all the days of our lives. May it be so. Amen.